I would hope that nobody would say that 100 people is mega, although, you know, I don't put it past regulators to do that. But I think what Travis is saying is right. That we are fine with regulating mega events. And when Martha said Woodstock, that's a pretty big event. I mean,
well,
some of us were born at that time.
Heard about it. I've never.
you young puppies don't remember that. Some of us do. And so that certainly is a mega event. So I think you're right. Your interpretation is right. That we would like to go on record that yes, the mega is fine to regulate. We'd like a locality to decide what a mega is.
Well, the intent when we were writing it was more like we put down here state and county fairs. They bring a lot of people. They just had the Interlochen Festival up in Alomar. So, you know, that's what we're thinking about. We wouldn't really like the counties to get into, you know, if you have a pumpkin picking day, you know, and you have a hay ride out, you know, it does bring a lot of people, but I would not think that needs to be regulated. So specific events like, okay, we're going to have the state fair over here in Doswell, and we're going to have a county fair in Rockingham. Of course, the county should have something to do with that.
Larry?
Well, I notice, for instance, there's a mandate here. It says special exception or special use permit shall be required for any mega farm commerce activities. I'm just wondering if you might actually, in some situations, have localities that may not want to require a special exception, special use permit. They may want to make it a ministerial process by allowing for it to take place through an administrative permit. But the question I have is, I think you've taken the authority to require an administrative permit out of the bill. And I think part of the advantage to the administrative permit that it could be less onerous on an applicant than a special exception or special use permit.
Yeah, especially if there were, especially if it were codified, you know, articulated in the code. I certainly don't have any problem with that.
Following up on that same section, dealing with special exceptions and special use permits, you used the state and county fairs as examples of farmer activities. How would you suggest that we handle a special use permit for 10,000 people with regards to frequency? Is that permit for once a year, which traditionally fairs are, or could they get a special permit to have 10,000 people every weekend?
Well, I would suggest that VDAX get down there and make the road bigger so they can keep coming down there every weekend. But what I also think is that what we are saying as far as the special exemption, administrative special use permits obtaining to where you have a big state fair, the issue of why we put it in here under A was because right now that's where Martha's having issues. She needs to have an administrative permit to have a birthday party. So it's a little extreme. And so I think we need just to have some common sense as far as we know that the county needs to have something needs to regulate big events. But we need to somehow differentiate what that actually is so everybody knows what they need to do in those situations. So to have a birthday party of 8 girls should not have to have a special permit. But to have an interlocking festival, we think it's reasonable as citizens of Virginia for the county to regulate.
Again, frequency, would that be a special permit for
I
one
think
event
frequency of
annually, such as a county fair?
I personally would really like to see counties encourage people to come to the farm. If they find that it is a hazard to get into the farm, then we need to allocate funds to make a turning lane so that they can come. So I do not think you should be able to regulate 10,000 people every weekend. I think you need to figure out a way to get the conference to the rural areas in Virginia because, quite frankly, rural Virginia is bankrupt. It's going under. If you go through all these towns, there's no town in there.
Yeah, if we had an event attracting 10,000 people a weekend, I'd like to appreciate the economic impact that would have on our locality. I think that would be just delightful. And I would suggest that the person that's fearful of that suggest to me why it's so easy to get 10,000 people to a farm on a weekend. It's not easy. It's not easy to get 200.
Well, my concern would be that we would have Chuck E. Cheese who provides birthday parties with 400 or 500 people every weekend on a farm. There might be a better location for that sort of activity.
Well,
I'd say the chances of that are about as high as, being visited by Martians tomorrow.
All questions?
I have one question. Listening to this conversation made me think, does the event have to be, or should it be, ag-related? Example, I have a farm and I want to open it up to horse trails. All right, horses, agriculture is fine. Next week I want to have a motorcycle race or trials through my woods. Is there a difference in something that is directly ag-related, if you see my point, and something that isn't, even though I'm having it on my farm? Is there a difference?
I don't see any difference. We have land, we have dirt, we have cool places and trees and a neat place to be. I don't see a bit of difference between the horse and the trail bike.
Thank you.
noise ordinances kind of come in on that.
Yeah, and then you have specific noise ordinances that come in. Again, specificity could trump that.
Just asking a
Yeah,
general
sure,
question.
sure, fair enough, yeah.
And again, I think our goal is not to, we're probably going to dig into this a little deeper. We just wanted to do a brief overview
Right.
and get all the proposals on the table. So if it's okay, we'll kind of hold off right there. We've kind of had a chance to get a summary of the intent, so thank you. Is Mr. Fitzgibbons here yet? Okay. We'll go ahead. If you look in your packet, you've got a proposal as well. It's the first one that was submitted by Mr. Mark Fitzgibbons. He's come today to kind of walk us through what his proposal does. And again, we'll have some questions on that, and then we'll hear the next one after that, and then kind of go from there. Thanks.
And my apologies for running late, Commissioner Lord. Thank you for everything that you've done with this whole endeavor here. It's been a lot of work, and I thank all the members of the working group here. This panel really was put together as a result of the popularity of the Bonetta Bill and the growing outcry to protect farmers' rights. And I've presented to you the Virginia Farm Rights Protection Act, or what I call the Bonetta Bill 2.0. The Bonetta Bill 2.0 does the same things as the Bonetta Bill, plus it adds a few protections. The three main things that it does is it clarifies what should already be clear, which is that farm rights include the right of commerce. It protects the constitutional rights of farmers, and it gives farmers remedies when counties violate those rights. No matter what this board or commission recommends, I respectfully suggest that the constitutional protections and the remedies must be a part of your recommendations, because local governments left unchecked are a great threat to farm rights. And I would add that the members of this group that presented what should be protected, I have suggested that the reverse should be true. That is, it would be the duty of government to say what is not protected, not the duty of farmers to say what is protected. Back to the Bonetta Bill 2.0. Just as farmers face consequences when they violate the law or trespass on other people's rights, which is one incentive to respect members of their communities, counties must face consequences when they violate the law or trespass on the rights of farmers. The remedies provisions will encourage respect for rights and reduce litigation by providing incentives for counties to respect those rights. In this process, it has been extremely illuminating that some special interests, including those claiming to support local food, could be against any of these three objectives. This process has helped expose those special interests and the flawed positions that actually work against local food and small farmers. Bonetta Bill 2.0 adds a few provisions not found in the Bonetta Bill. For example, it clarifies that counties may impose noise ordinances on farms, which was assumed in the original Bonetta bill, so there are no unauthorized Woodstock rock concerts. It states a rebuttable presumption that farm processing is not industrial. So apple farmers may make apple ciders, but farmers could not build chemical plants. There were claims that farmers would use the Bonetta bill to build Walmarts. This bill further addresses the primary farm commerce versus incidental farm commerce in ways to assure those people that Walmarts would not spring up from cow pastures. The bill also expressly recognizes that counties may regulate for the health, safety, and welfare, but as all good laws should be written, puts the burden on the county to articulate and prove those intentions, and does not put the burden on the farmers. Let's contrast this bill with the bill submitted by Farm Bureau, which I think would actually make things worse in the current circumstances. It is a version of a bill that VACO called a straw man bill, and we all know what a straw man is, right? First, Farm Bureau's Right to Farm Act is found in Title 3.2 governing agriculture. The Right to Farm Act imposes ordinances on counties. It is Richmond dictating county ordinances. The Right to Farm Act is actually a misnomer because it protects what was traditionally considered nuisances, noise and stink, but protects no actual rights. Farm Bureau now claims the state should leave the actual farmers' rights to local control. The bill they submit says usual and customary agritourism activities shall be permitted unless there is a substantial impact on the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Local restrictions shall be reasonable and take into account the economic impact of the agricultural operation, et cetera, et cetera. Folks, this language would allow counties to prevent what is even good for the health, safety, and welfare of the public so long as it is substantial. Also, 3 county supervisors can determine what is reasonable without any standards whatsoever. Thus, counties may make the unreasonable actually law by simply calling it reasonable. That, I respectfully suggest, would be irresponsible. The Farm Bureau bill is an invitation for counties to abuse farmers' rights, as well intentioned as it may have been. Farmers favor local control over state control. The Bonetta Bill 2.0 does not substitute state control over local control. It simply puts controls on local control. The ultimate control lies in the remedies in which farmers themselves may hold counties accountable. And this whole process has shown that local control needs control. Right now, some counties are out of control. Martha Bonetta was cited for selling vegetables.
Mr. Fitzgibbons, I think it would be more helpful just due to the time constraints to spend our time focusing on the bill instead of the commentary. I think it would be more helpful for this group if we could specify, like within your legislation, exactly what it does instead of talking about events that have happened a year ago.
The bill protects, clarifies that farm commerce is protected. That is in section 3.2-310 definitions. Now, I would like to commend my friend Joel Salatin's perhaps better definition, because the definition in this particular bill is rather lengthy. I would say that Joel Salatin's definition is shorter and much more to the point. The section 3.2-311 identifies farm commerce rights and restrictive ordinances. A lot of this language was actually taken from the Right to Farm Act, and I suggest that it would be appropriate for this bill to be amended into Title 3.2, just as the Right to Farm Act is amended in Title 3.2. 3.2-312 protects the constitutional rights of farmers. The winery ordinance, winery statute, for example, states that counties may not restrict private personal gatherings, and then goes on to define down what are private personal gatherings, which is a violation of the First Amendment on its face. I suggest that that provision, if challenged in court, would be stricken. This bill avoids that problem by simply saying farmers have constitutional rights, and it is the burden of the county to prove that those constitutional rights are protected and that the ordinances do not violate constitutional rights. It is not the burden of the farmer to prove that his constitutional rights have been violated, but that the county must articulate and show that the ordinances comply with the Constitution. The last part is the remedies, and I've changed this section since the Bennett bill was originally written. It provides remedies against counties that make mistakes and violate the rights of farmers. It provides remedies when counties intentionally violate the rights of farmers, and the provisions and the penalties for intentional violations are stronger than just simple mistakes. And the counties do make mistakes, and this would accommodate mistakes with fewer penalties. It provides that the counties would pay the reasonable attorney's fees when they are in the wrong. It also provides that county officials themselves, when they intentionally violate farmers' rights, would be subject to the remedies. It also adds provisions allowing the Attorney General to intervene in any action brought by a county farmer, or the Attorney General could institute his or her own actions if there were a violation of the farmer's rights. And lastly, it provides whistleblower protections for county employees who see that counties are violating the law. It gives them whistleblower protections so that they are not penalized by the county for actually encouraging the county to enforce the law. That's the sum and substance of the Bennett Bill 2.0. I did make some changes since the first draft that I submitted to the board, and clarifying that there's this provisions in many codes for primary commerce of business versus incidental commerce. For example, a farmer's spouse who's an artist should be able to sell his or her art at the farm without having to obtain a special administrative permit. Those are incidental types of commerce to farming, but they should be allowed on the farm just as readily as selling any types of produce or livestock. So this does address many of the concerns that were raised after the Bennett bill was introduced, and I think it eliminates all of those concerns. Those are my comments. Thank you very much, Commissioner Lord.
Sure, thank you very much for coming. Can you stick around for a few questions? I know you said you had to leave soon, but
Yes.
Open the floor for questions and comments. To me, it looks like that the first half of your bill is pretty similar to the other version. This is basically you're adding on the constitutional rights and the remedies portion. Is that the primary difference between the two?
The constitutional rights were in the original Bennett bill, and they were taken out in subcommittee without explanation. So this is just basically keeping the constitutional rights in there. And further clarifying that it is the burden of the county, not the farmer, to show that the ordinance complies with the Constitution.
This is for my own education. Are there any other statutes out there that place the burden back on the government to prove constitutionality of a statute versus the private party to show that?
Historically, there were. In the 1800s, the burden was sometimes on the government. There were remedies against federal government officials in the 1800s. That was changed statutorily, but there were, and the government had the burden. The doctrine is a judicial doctrine that has evolved over time, and that is the doctrine that presumes the constitutionality of a statute. But in those cases, you have a legislature and you have a governor's veto. In a county, you don't have those types of procedural protections for constitutional rights. So the case